Good Sunday evening to all of our viewers, and welcome to today's edition of Sunday Settie. As always, I'm your host, Sion Marshall, and I will be with you for the next 2 hours. Thank you so much for joining. As always, I have waiting in the studio to join me my good friend, my brother, and my regular co-host or sidekick, whatever you want to call it, on this Sunday evening program, the brother Richard Byron Cox. Let me bring Richard into the studio so that you could say good evening, good afternoon, and we can get on with our program. Richard, good
Yeah.
evening.
Good evening. It's always great to be here, and thank you for having me once again. It's a great Sunday evening. I hope you had a great Sunday, a great week, and I know you're working hard at your studies and so on. I'd like to welcome all of our viewers from wherever you are in the world, North America, England, of course, at home on the rocks, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we're going to have a wonderful show tonight, this evening. And so please join us wherever you are. Let us know you're on the live so that we can say hello to you and share the live, please, so that we can interact and have a good evening. How are you doing, Sian?
I am well. I am well. Today has been raining. It has been raining all day today. And based on the weather, it will be raining for most of the week. I saw some videos from my good friend Ev, who lives in Luton, and it seems
Okay.
that some part of the UK has had serious flooding. Serious
Wow.
flooding. Uh, I am not aware of what the situation is in my neighborhood, in my neck of the woods, or in my city, whichever you want to call it, because I have not left uh, my place of abode since I got home on Friday. But with this level of rain, I guess anything is expected. But outside of that, I've had a pretty decent weekend. I was able to do some work, get some rest as well, and focus on what is really important. And of course, one of the important things on weekends is this program, Sunday Setting, where I interact with viewers from wherever they are. And you join me, Richard, and we seek to engage in discussions of substance and merit with our people. This evening, as announced a few weeks ago, we would be having with us the newly appointed Chief Executive Officer of the Tourism Authority in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ms Annette Mark. There's no S, Mark. Now, we should be joining us shortly, and we would have a fantastic discussion. I hope that would be fruitful for everybody involved, and you will get more about what exactly is happening in our country regarding tourism. There has been a lot of announcements this week. I saw in the news that American is adding a direct flight from New York, JetBlue is coming from New York, and so forth. So lots of things are happening in tourism. Now, you may be familiar with the fact that before Tourism Authority, Miss Mark was involved at the Invest SVG. When she comes, we're going to have all of that discussion and chat with her about all of that. Yeah, I see Max. Well, hey, Max, how are you doing? Good to see you, Max. That's my nephew, or my great nephew. Evan, good evening. He said sofa. Well, Sunday sofa, Sunday Settie. What is more catchy? I like Settie, but you seem to like sofa. Hi, Coach, how are you doing? And Ev, I hope you are keeping warm and dry. All right. I see Richard excused himself from the studio, so I guess he got to do something and come back. But this evening plans to be an exciting program. Of course, Richard, we are still what's the word I want to use? Well, I guess when they come back, we'll talk about that. You know. Now, as always, I encourage you to share the live. All right. If you're on and you're watching, just share it on your device, on your page, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, share it so that more people can see what is going on. I think I should share as well. Just give me
Yeah.
a second there. Richard, uh, what has the feedback been so far from the program that we had last week?
Oh, I well, to be honest with you, I can only say that we are blessed from that standpoint because there was a lot of inboxing from people who found the program fantastic. It gave them an idea as to what the book is about. This book, um, you know, the story of Pauline Bramble, Spring Blossom and Young Turns. And I think it was everybody enjoyed it. Everybody who inboxed me and so on enjoyed it very much indeed. It told them a little bit about not just the book, but about the man behind the book. But I think also uh, the atmosphere that we conveyed, so to speak, was, what people like. My trip to Birmingham was fantastic. As you know, I also had an interview on radio in Birmingham, which went very, very well. And the producers of that show, the operators of that radio, um, did make a video with it as well. And the book is now being advertised on their website. So, all in all, it was really quite a great thing. As you said, it's in a Sunday evening discussion, and we offer substance to people, things that they're interested in. One of the things that I would like to encourage our viewers to do is to, if you have a question on the subject that we are talking about, please put it in the chat, and we will try and answer that question. And it doesn't have to be to either of us; it can be to the guests as well, because this is about you. This is about our country, about its development, but more than anything else, it's about our sharing one with the other. Because this the process of development, the process of advancement of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not a process for Ralph Gonzalez. It's not a process for C.N. Marshall, neither for Richard Byron Cox. It's a process for all of us Vincentians to be involved in. Our polity is a democratic polity, and so we all have got to be involved. And that show last week, I think, showed it from the standpoint of people's participation. As you know, there was really great participation in terms of viewers and so on. So I do think that it was a very good program.
Absolutely. I definitely can thoroughly agree with you on that. I've shared, and I'm looking forward to this evening's program. I mentioned, as you know, Richard, that we have a special guest, the newly appointed CEO of the Tourism Authority, Ms Annette Mark. And before that was at Invest SVG, I believe, for about 5 years.
Yeah,
So she has been home for a while, and very much involved in the promotion and the investment aspect of what is happening in St. Vincent. And so she's going to give us some insights as to what is
yeah,
happening now at Tourism Authority, but also take us a little bit back as to some of the groundwork that was done uh,
yeah.
with her tenure at the Invest SVG.
SVG. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead when you
No, no,
finish.
that's fine. I was done.
Yes, I contextually speaking, Miss Annette Mark, is involved in, for want of a better word, the promotion and sale of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and she has moved from one part of that process, which is the investment process, and has now turned to tourism. But the truth of the matter is that that is what she's involved in. Getting St. Vincent known out there and getting people to be involved with us in terms of our tourism product. I think this is a very important discussion for several reasons. I'll just name a couple of them. Firstly, St. Vincent is now really on the takeoff in terms of tourism. It's one of the hottest new destinations, and that is thanks to certain infrastructure and development, for example, the international airport. And as we know, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for quite a long time, was a monocrop society, or economy, if you want to put it that way. Whether it was coconut, or it was cotton, or it was banana, you know what I mean, right? Or our root, for that matter. But now we are trying to make tourism the central engine, of economic development and progress, advancement. Therefore, it is of fundamental importance that we understand the thinking, and the idea of those who are managing such an important aspect of our economic development. So I think contextually speaking, this is an extremely important discussion, and I really would like to encourage people to share the life. Please, Evans B. Roberts, BC Roberts. BC is like Byron Cox, so he's Evans Byron Cox Roberts. I was only joking, Mr. Roberts. Don't be offended by that. That was just a joke, because as you know, we talk serious things, but we don't forget that part of our humanity and making people comfortable and so on. So, Mr. Roberts, Kojo, yeah, I know you got the two books, and thank you so much, Kojo. I'm really happy for that. But yes,
Well,
back with
I was saying that he was having a volume problem. I don't know why, because everything I just double checked and everything on mine is pretty good. So, Ev, I'm not sure why you're having a volume issue. I'm hearing Richard clearly.
and I'm hearing you
Is it
absolutely clearly,
right?
absolutely,
So
absolutely
I'm
clearly,
not sure. I really am not sure what it is. Could you, if you
absolutely.
have a similar volume problem, maybe you could let me know so that I could really dig deep to see if it is on my
What the
side. But
problem is,
for
yeah.
now, everything seems to be good.
I see we have a Mr. Maxwell Wilson, and he addresses you as Hi Uncle CN. So that's one of your nephews. I don't know, I suppose. But
That's
yes,
my great
Mr.
nephew. That's my niece's son.
Okay, right.
Yes,
So
he lives in Florida.
okay, so Mr. Wilson, we'll be happy if you share the live stream. And those of you who are listening to us, but you just haven't showed your face, as we would say in St. Vincent. We'll be
Mm,
happy that you show your face. Let us know you're there, because we are doing this not for us. We are doing this for you, for our country. So, let us, um, know, say hello, say hello. I don't see Miss, what's her name? She's usually there. Paul, the
Latoya,
beauty, the beautiful lady. I don't remember her name now.
Latoya.
Latoya, yes, Latoya Paul. So somebody tell Latoya we are on, and we are waiting for her as well. One
Well,
thing I wanted to ask you,
yes.
Cian, as regards this afternoon's exercise and our guest, is this.
I mean, exercise or not? I mean, exercise. You exercise. I mean,
No,
exercise.
I mean
You
this
lazy.
exercise, right? But you don't need to exercise, I mean, we know that you're fit and everything.
I
No,
know
I
that, but
wasn't
yeah.
talking about physical exercise.
Oh, okay, okay.
I, no, but what I wanted to ask you from your own perspective, because you have been interested in having Miss Max on, and there's a reason for that. Could you give us a little insight as to why you think such a discussion is so vital, and in particular at this moment?
The the focus of this program is really to discuss issues that are relevant to St. Vincent and Grenadines, to Vincentians, national issues, regional
Mm,
issues, global issues. And no doubt, what is happening in tourism is relevant.
yes,
Now, you would remember that back in 2018, when this program launched, I had Ms. Mark on as the CEO of Invest SVG.
yes,
Recently, I had the new CEO of Invest SVG, Glen Beach, on to discuss investment. But I have had Glen Beach on, not on this program, because of course this is new, but previously I've interviewed Glen Beach as CEO of tourism. I remember
yeah,
doing different programs. I remember, as a matter of fact, one program was a morning program out in the hot sun. We did lovely for about 2 hours on the scoop, where we looked at tourism. So with Miss Mark now occupying that position, it's only fitting for us to chat with her and get an idea of, what is her vision based on the mandate that she has as the new CEO to push the advertising and the marketing of St. Vincent and the Grenadines forward. And I think it's fitting because, like you mentioned, there is a serious nexus between what she was doing at Invest SPG and what she's doing now. Because at Invest SPG, she was promoting St. Vincent and the Grenadines specifically as an investment location, as an investment destination. And one would recognize that over the last 5 years, a significant percentage of the investment that has gotten into St. Vincent and Grenadines has come through tourism. So that now maybe it changes so that now she's possibly, I don't know, and that's why we're talking to her, going to be talking to her, going to be promoting St. Vincent and Grenadines as a tourism destination and not so much as a investment destination. But I'm sure the linkage is still there. And so people would come, a tourist would come here, love it, and decide to invest. So that
Yeah,
it's all significantly
together.
linked. And so it is important, I think it was necessary for us to have a chat with Ms. Mark and get a sense of how she's settling in. And like I said, what are some of the things that we can expect going forward, and see how, most importantly, she can bring some of what occurred, took place, the experience that occurred over the last 5 years at Invest into what is happening or what should be happening now at Tourism Authority.
Okay. There is the idea in our country now that tourism is of such vital importance that it has to be in the proper hands, if you want to call it that, you know.
Mhm.
And Miss Mark was the first CEO of Invest SVG, and they have just changed places, you know. And that is the reality of the situation. They have just changed places. And it's interesting to see, from my standpoint, Mr. Beach has got to build on what Miss Mark created, you know, and she now is going to build, you know what I mean, on
Right,
what he did. My issue is, it would be interesting to hear from her. What is their cooperation? You understand what I'm saying?
right.
Because because the business is linked, but also the two CEOs have changed places. So I don't know if you find that an interesting dynamic, but I do find it an
One of the things one of the things I am about 85% convinced of. I may be wrong, but
interesting.
I doubt I am. I believe the CEO of tourism is the office of the CEO of tourism is on
Hmm.
the board of directors of Invest SVG,
Hmm.
so that there will be cooperation regardless. You know,
Yes.
and clearly there is an intersection of the mandates of both organizations, and I think both Glenn and Annette can testify to that. There's
Uh-huh.
definitely an intersection of the mandates, and so that requires cooperation that they work together. But even more broadly, Richard, the fact that this is all done on behalf of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, requires that they
Hmm.
work together because there aren't any silos as regards international development. Everything has to be interconnected. Our health sector is significant as we develop because our developing country would mean more people coming in, would put greater stress on our resources. And so our health sector has now to be expanded and to accommodate or existing resident population as well as whatever visiting population would come from time to time in and out. The infrastructure, getting people from A to B, again, not just for the locals, but when the tourists come as well, they want to get from A to B, the infrastructure. So there can't be a silo approach to development at all, but there must be cooperation and significant interlinking
Hmm.
between all of these sectors and all of the players in our economy.
Yeah, it would be interesting also to hear from Miss Mark. Her view as to going forward after Beryl, because as you know, a significant part of our tourism is in the Grenadines, right? And as you know, uh, Canawan Union and Myro and parts of Beckwith did suffer serious damage, you know. And so what we're talking about here is rebuilding infrastructure, you know. And so it would be interesting to hear what is your view on that. What do you think?
Uh, I was a little distracted there. I heard part of the question, but I was a little distracted because I just got a message from Annette where she's having some lockdown issues, so I'm trying to sort it out. But the question has to do with
Yeah, I
the
was simply saying that, as you know, a significant part of our tourism is Grenadines base. You
yes,
know what I mean? And we know of the massive destruction that took place in
yes,
Union Island. We know of the significant destruction that took place in Canawan. We also significant destruction in Myro and some also in Bequia. So I think it's also interesting if it would be interesting if she can share a little bit on the view as to what is happening in terms of, I know she's not involved in construction, so she's involved in tourism, but you were talking about the infrastructure which supports that tourism. And so the rebuilding there is also an important question. I that is my feeling. What is your own feeling on it?
absolutely, no doubt, no doubt, and it would bring a sense of not just that aspect that you've mentioned, but the impact of the destruction on revenue. Because if significant in Union, all hotels are damaged, and there was significant damage in Canavan as well, then how has that impacted the tourism industry? How is that impacting revenue? How is that impacting employment? So absolutely, her perspective on the recovery post peril would also be quite important and informative for us here on the program. She has just joined us, and so now I'm going to bring into this studio my very good friend Annette Mark. Annette, good evening.
Hi, Richard. How you doing?
It's so good to see Miss Mark, always beautiful, always wonderful. Don't blush. It's just the truth. I'm not flattering you.
But
I'm not
lad,
known to be a
hey,
flatterer.
hey, cut.
Yeah.
Wait.
People get
I,
jealous, Miss
I
Mark.
didn't,
Just get jealous. I
I
don't know
didn't
why.
bring Annette in for that. I didn't bring Annette in for that at all.
Not that time, right? No time for
No, no,
that.
no, no, Miss Mark. It's wonderful to see you. We had your son, but not me. Seeing had your son and up late and talking about his music and things like that. And now we're having you. So like, it's a case of like son, like mother, not the other way around.
Don't
Not
worry, don't worry. And I've already indicated, I'm sure Christian is much better than Annette in this regard, but I've already indicated Christian to just give Sarah the heads up because she's also a fantastic musician. I know she's
Yes,
launched
she
her
is.
bathroom line. So
Absolutely.
she's
Yes.
coming on the program as well. Right? But
Yes,
I
she's
would not give Annette that message. I'll give Christian.
oh, okay. But how are you, Miss Mark? Before we go anywhere, how are you doing?
good. St. Vincent is so hot. Oh my goodness me. It's like, I don't know. I've never felt this heat before. I quite understand why we are seeing all these weather systems, but whoa. I'm looking forward to the Christmas season and the Christmas breeze.
I see. I see. My advice to you is not to join me in hell because if it's so terrible now, I know I'm going to hell, right? So my advice to you is not to join me in hell. I don't know where Cena is going. I can't speak for him, but that would be my advice to you. If you can't stand this, I don't know how you're going to stand hell.
Well, I have no intentions of going to hell.
Amen, Annette. Amen. You and I are glory bound. You and I are glory bound. Amen. Hallelujah.
Absolutely. I'm on that
Absolutely.
train.
Listen, your mom did a lot of work to make sure that she pointed the children in the right direction. No
I'm on
disappointment,
the
say you're
train.
going wrong.
But before we get to business, it's nice to see you smiling. Because the post, the position you hold now, I I don't know, but I assume it's quite a challenging situation. And but you're smiling, and that's important because tourism without a smile is not tourism. You know
That's
what
right.
I mean?
That's
Tourism without a smile is not tourism. And so
absolutely.
you
We must
came on with this
smile.
wonderful smile. So
Yes.
that's the opening shot right there. Wonderful opening shot.
We
I
must
think
practice
you.
what we preach.
I am wondering if you're playing your shot, or as the young people like to say, shooting your shot, but not on my program. And then,
I don't know. Miss Mag, I think everybody would agree with me that tourism without a smile is not tourism. Don't you agree on that?
Absolutely, we must practice what we preach.
You know.
We
absolutely.
must.
Annette, thank you so much for joining. And like I
Pleasure.
was saying before you came, this is the second time I've had you on one of my programs because you were up late way back in 2018. But I've also interviewed you on different radio stations as well in the past. And it's always a pleasure to have you on. on the program. You so insightful, such insightful discussions, that no doubt the listening audience leave very much informed. Now, I want us to chat a little bit about take the program into three stages. I want us to talk a little bit about the beginnings of Annette Mark, where it all started, and then we're going to look at the professional development of Annette Mark, and finally we end it all off with your last, I would say, what, 6, 7, 8 years in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, when
Sure.
you were, as it were, reintroduced to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But for some, it was a forced introduction. So, and even for me, because I knew your mom, lovely, amazing lady, but never knew that she was your mom until, of course, I got to know you. So let's start a little bit about the history of Annette Mark. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Okay, so wow, we hope you have more than 2 hours for yeah.
Listen, I can give you three just because it's you.
We actually just now I'm going to speak to Richard. I say and tell Richard, you know, Richard, I need to write a book,
Oh,
Richard,
on
there
my
you go.
life.
I do hope that you've bought on the story of Pauline Bramble. Otherwise, your
I
enemies
know I have not done that as yet, but I'm waiting for it to get in the bookstores here, and I'm going to buy a copy here. And when you come, you're going to sign my copy for me.
definitely, most
Right.
definitely. I
Okay.
can assure you, I'm seeing. I don't charge me for this, but Miss Mark, I can assure you that, and Cian will testify to this. You have never read anything like this before,
Yes.
and if you're disappointed, I'll give you back triple time the money you spent on it.
Okay. I'll
That's
keep that in
that's
mind.
how convinced I am. It's not just me, the world is convinced.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
Yes.
even coach is convinced that Richard opening with on a good foot. Good shot. Yeah, Richard, there you go.
Okay. So I was born to Shirley Jones Lane, and my father was Issa Lane from Sandy Bay. I was actually born in the UK, and I would say that most of my formative years though were spent in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So when I was born there, came back here. I remember going to Catholic school for a little bit. We went back to the UK, and then we came back to England. We came back to St. Vincent when I was about, yeah, actually I went into high school. Um, and I will always remember my mom saying to me, one of the reasons she came back to St. Vincent with me is that, and she was absolutely convinced that this was not her child, um, is that when in the UK in those days, they tried to stereotype young black girls, right? So when it was time for me to move from one school to the next, they said to my mother, "Oh, your daughter, she needs one-on-one and she needs special treatment and whatever." And my mother was like, "Not my child. Mm-mm, not my child. I'm taking my daughter home to St. Vincent." And we came back to St. Vincent, and I ended up going to high school, and then, of course, I left high school. I joined LIAT after high school. And that was quite an experience in itself. I think that is where I may have gained my voice and my confidence in working with LIAT, or at least the beginning of it. And then when I left LIAT, I met my husband during that period. Well, we got married afterwards, but I met my then husband, child father after that, right? So um, I then moved to Trinidad, where I lived. I had my kids, and while in Trinidad, I went back to school and studied law. I had my kids. I had three kids at that time, and a pilot husband, a husband that was always all over the place. So it was really down to me to take care of my three kids, with two in Pampers and another one in primary school. And I fought through those years, and I made it. I graduated. I lectured um, during that period of time, and then I joined Trinity Chambers. I did my internship there, and then I eventually, as I graduated and was called to the bar, they asked me to come back, and I went to work. I became I joined the chambers as a junior attorney, and I stayed there for about 2.5 years. And soon after that, my husband got a job in Dubai. And we women, we always have to make that sacrifice for our husband and for our families. So I went to Dubai with him. I did leave Dubai eventually, and I ended up in Antigua, where I worked as legal counsel for the Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control. And do you want me to go on still?
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
I'm coming close to the end there.
Yeah,
So,
that's all right.
um, but while in Antigua, working as legal counsel for the Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control, the longest name that I could ever come across for any organization. Um, I was also appointed by the government there to represent them at the OAS and the United Nations in respect to the conventions against corruption. And as a result of that, I would review. We do peer reviews of countries to make sure that they were you know they were what's the word I'm looking for,
Compliant.
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 Thank you. Old age, yeah, complying with the conventions. Um, and as a result of that, I was eventually asked to sit in immigration, just to assist them with some matters, and things didn't go as well for certain people, and eventually I was asked. I'm trying not to say too much. Then I was asked to act as the chief immigration officer. It wasn't the intention to be there more than 6 months, but I did spend about 2.5 to almost 3 years as chief immigration officer. And then my mom, it was always on my mind that my mom was here in St. Vincent and being looked after by other people. And she was going down, and she was going down very fast. And I wanted to come back home. I wanted to spend time with her because I had left St. Vincent when I was like 20. And it was in any given time I may have spent like 6 months at home. So I really wanted to spend time with her, and I'm so glad I did, because as a result of that, she lived for another 5 years when I came home. I was so glad I was able to have that time with her. So I came home. I actually, before I came home, I applied for the job as the executive director of Invest SVG, and I was successful. And I came home and worked for Invest SVG, and well, now then you know the rest of the story
Right,
basically,
right.
how it ended.
Now, Richard, I don't know if you're familiar with Miss um, Jones, Lane, or is it Laney Jones? I can't remember.
Jones, yeah,
Yeah, but this is a wonderful lady who at one time ran the Paradise Hotel, a very short lady. And I got to meet her because I spent time at the hotel, and I know she also had the Oasis, which was a Christian retreat and so forth.
yeah.
And so I got to know her. And then, of course, when I met Annette, I realized that she was Annette's mom. But Annette, you bring significant experience, varied experience to the position. First of all, of Invest SVG, from anti-money laundering to immigration, significant part of it in tourism by way of LIAT and the law. How would you say all of those experiences together prepared you for your former role at Invest SPG and even now?
Okay, so before I even go along, I even get to tourism. What a lot of people don't know is that when my mother ran Mariners Inn at one time while I was in school, and my mother insisted that I work, to my dismay, during my summer holidays at the hotel, to keep me out of trouble. So she insisted that I work. So I did. I worked as a receptionist there during my school holidays, and even when I left school before I went to Liat, I worked as a receptionist. And then when she took up Paradise Inn, I also worked at Paradise Inn with her. I did a lot at Paradise Inn. I mean, I did everything. I was the receptionist. I worked in the kitchen. I was in the bedrooms. I was the gopher. I was everything for the hotel at that point in time. And this is before I actually went off. I came back to St. Vincent, I think, for a little period of time before I got married. And so I worked at the hotel with my mother. So I would say in working in different roles, well, certainly working at immigration was my first managerial role. Um, there was, what should I say, a level of structure, because I managed, 200, about 200 immigration officers, and was what, 6 ports, I believe it was 6 different ports. So I was thrown into this position and very quickly had to learn the whole operation of immigration and national security. And as a result of being in that position, I was placed in different, on different committees. I was literally at one point in time on a committee, on an advisory committee, a national security advisory committee to the prime minister, with immigration and customs and the ONDCP, the head of the ONDCP. So it was a learning experience, I must say, but one that made me grow professionally. And it took me, what I would say, from being a young professional to being a more experienced and matured professional, and very quickly, because most of my life, I would say, I would go back to say that most of my married life, I was a housewife. I was a mother. I took care of my children while I was studying. And it was very later on in life that I actually joined the professional world after I became, a lawyer, after I was called to the bar. And then I went to Dubai and I went back into the role of being a mother, a housewife, a caregiver, and got extremely bored, because there's only so much of that you could do. And then I got the opportunity, skipping out some, redacting some of parts of my past. I have to redact,
Give me
yes.
that.
I got the opportunity to then go to Antigua to work. And like I said, that was being in that role, being in ONDCP, and then picking up the pieces and being in ONDCP, and then being placed in the management role, first management role of 200 people. It was a steep learning curve, but one that I took with me to Invest SVG. Now, going to Invest SVG was a completely different learning curve altogether, because here I am in I've left an organization of 200 people and layers of management, and I am in now in a smaller environment where you literally have to learn people. You have to learn each individual in your organization, what makes them tick, what makes them upset, what makes, and it's actually a much harder organization to manage than that of an immigration, where you have all these layers, right? So it has been, both organizations have given me that learning curve, have kept giving me steep learning curves, but in different directions. And here I am now in the tourism authority, and I've taken all of that along with me in respect to management, and hope that, well, my experiences there will allow me to make a difference.
Richard, any questions? Because I've been reading most of the questions. I'm gonna allow you to jump in here
Yeah.
because I have
Uh,
so many questions right
I,
now.
yeah. In my own experience in life, there's certain things that have driven me to be who I am, professionally speaking. When I went to university, I actually went to university to become an economist. Within 2 weeks, I realized I knew economics without me doing it at the university, so this was a waste of my time. And within that short space of time, I realized that I wanted to study philosophy, you know, and I decided, well, look, that's what I want to do. And then a wise man said to me, so when the hell are you going to work with this philosophy when you return to St. Vincent? What are you going to do? And so that's just when I realized I had to do something that would pay me some kind of money, you know?
Yeah.
Now, I start there to ask you this. I mean, you've had a varied career. You've gone to different places and so on. Um, and I'm not certain in my own head that um, you went through that experience where you said, well, this is what I want to be. So I'm coming to a very simple question. what in your mind, before we go into Invest SVG and that sort of stuff and tourism, what in your mind you think from your experiences formed you or determined this was the moment that you said, okay, this is where I want to go? Was it your married life? Was it your university career? Was it your experience? What is it that finally said, okay, this is how I see Annette Mark as a professional going forward?
Okay, so I don't want you to laugh at any period when I'm saying what I have to say, right? So when I was married, and to me, I always wanted to go back to school. I always was kind of fascinated with law, and I would look at a lot of legal shows which don't really depict what law is really
Nothing,
about.
nothing, absolutely nothing.
So, um, but would you believe it or not? What I really wanted to be and was obsessed about, and still today, very much obsessed about, and my good friend Peter will tell you that, was a meteorologist.
Okay.
Right? Believe it or not, that was my passion. Um, and even from in school, that's what I wanted to do. But when I got married and I started doing the research into being a meteorologist, I was told basically all you really need is 5 O levels. That's what I was told. However, because the scope in the Caribbean was so small, persons with first degrees and second degrees, what those are the people that would actually be chosen for the jobs. And I realized, all right, so this is not going to work for me, right? And then I remember one day that I went to court as a civilian for a matter, and I'm trying to figure out why it is that I may have ended up in court. I wasn't charged with anything, by the way. It, it was I cannot remember what it is that I had to go to court for, and when I stepped in the courtroom, it was like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. And then I started doing my research, and I eventually did my degree through the University of London, and went to Hewiden to do the bar, to read for the
Yeah.
bar,
Yeah.
right? So, and I was so passionate about the law at that point in time. I mean,
Mm.
literally passionate, and nothing was going to stand in my way. I was going to railroad anything or
Okay.
anybody that stood in
Okay.
my way at that point in time, because I even remembered when I had to write my exam to get into Hewiden, where 200 and almost 300 people were writing this exam for the 35 spaces in Hewiden, and going and said, I'm going to the classes, I'm going to do the classes, and I get to the classes, and sometime during the 6 weeks or the third week, the lecturer decides that he's going to give us this test, right? And I'm sitting there writing. Well, I have my pen over my paper, and he stands up over me, and he looks down at me, and he says, "Mark, did your pen run out of ink?"
Okay.
So when he was finished, he was added up everything. He wrote on the board, Hewitt Law School, and he said, look at it, look at it. This is as close as some of you will ever come to Hewitt Law School. And I remember that lecture so well that he gave afterwards about how you have to feel it in your stomach. It has to burn you that you
Yeah.
want it. You want to get there. You want to get into Hewitt Law School, and that's the only how you're going to do it. And I got home that evening, and for 3 weeks, I did not sleep in my bed. I took out every exam that Hewitt had on those papers. I did every single paper before I wrote the exam, and then I was told to pass my paper on the first paper. On that
Okay.
first, because the second one is just to cream off and whatever. And I wrote the first exam, and I walked out of there saying, yeah, I got this. The next day when we were supposed to go back and write the second exam, there was a hurricane. The whole country shut down. So we never wrote the second exam. So everybody who was waiting to pass the exams now on the second paper just never did. right? So I got into Hewitt in law school, but again, it was all about that desire, that passion, that burning, that
Mhm.
drive that I had that really made me eventually get that space in Hewitt in law school.
Mm.
And I always had a serious passion for law, and I enjoyed my very short 7 years career of law until I was then placed in the role of immigration. And I don't know if I'll ever go back to doing law. Maybe I will. We'll see what happens.
Mm.
Okay. Now
Well,
this,
I would bring a sweater for you.
Uh-huh.
right.
You see the
Okay.
sweater?
Please do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. This brings me to my first fundamental question to you. You managed immigration in Antigua, but there was an existing structure. You understand? All you had to do was to make sure that you tweak it to make it work better, okay, and you manage it properly.
Mhm.
Coming to it to Invest SVG, this was something completely new. You
Absolutely.
you were creating this from scratch.
Hmm.
You understand?
Hmm.
And there are three things here. One, you were creating it from scratch. Two, you never did it before.
Right.
Right? And three, you were dealing with a completely new environment, people you
Absolutely.
didn't know, and so on. Tell us a little bit about that because that is a very interesting thing. I probably will come back to your passion in a sometime later because that is an interesting thing to me. But I'd
Yes.
like for you to tell us. I mean, as I said, the immigration department existed in Antigua.
That's
There were
right.
immigration officers, etc., etc. There were
Yes.
rules, there were structures,
There
and
was
so
a
on.
law. There was a legal framework to follow.
Everything. But
Yeah.
now here you were thrown into this thing. And based on those three things that I mentioned, So could you walk us through that? Tell us a little bit about that. Because I find it interesting.
Okay, so when I came to Invest SVG, I mean, I literally had to do a lot of reading and researching. I mean, I had to learn what a FDI was, what a DDI was. I had to learn all the jargon. I had to, just bring myself up to speed with so many things that in immigration that didn't really matter. I had to find out what the GDP was. I had to do just everything. And coming into Invest SVG, like I said, there was a department with at that time 13 people that I had to learn. I had to know what each department was doing. There was nothing that was really written that I could follow, right? And then I remembered when I was coming to Invest SVG, everybody kept telling me they don't know what Invest SVG does, right? They literally don't know. So in my mind, when I got there, it was making people become familiar with what the
Mm.
agency does, and bringing more awareness to the work of Invest SVG. Now you will you'll be working on an investment, and everybody knows that investment could take you 2, 3, 4, 5 years before it actually comes to fruition, right? And there was a very strong focus on that when I got to the organization, that there was a strong focus on investment and getting the investment. There was not too much focus on the export part of it, and the awareness of what we were doing. So I spent a lot of time focusing on that, and that is why you see the building out of everything Vinci Expo, the night markets, and you would get the news releases, you would get the interviews, and I tried to bring Vincentians into what Invest SVG was doing for the St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There were a number of things when I got there that we started working on. Unfortunately, and I would tell you this, I was so excited. I was literally so excited to be at Invest SVG. And unfortunately, COVID just kind of railroaded everything because we had so many things that were in the planning. I mean, we were just about to have our first investment conference in St. Vincent. We had investors lined up from all over the world. We had a We had a consultant that was working with us, and things were just happening. And then COVID. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Then the
Yeah.
volcano. I'm like, what is going on?" Right?
Mhm.
And you know, but like you said, it's a completely different structure to what immigration was, and I
Mhm.
had to learn very fast, very very fast when I got there, and sort of you know navigate my way through.
Yeah. Before I take,
If I would come in here, Richard, just one second before I let you continue, um, and it, because as you are, as most people may know, and I'm sure Richard should know, that I'm very familiar with Invest SVG.
yes.
Not only because I work very, very closely with Annette, and even did some work for Invest SVG as a consultant with I think it was, what was it, Annette, ILO, or one of them organizations
I
when we had
can't
the
remember too far back. Yeah,
or one of them.
yeah,
But also, I worked at Invest SVG in business facilitation for about a year
that is
in
true.
2020, in
Yeah,
2012. So I'm quite familiar with the runnings of Invest SVG. So I want to ask, Annette, because you came in after a period. I think Cleo was the immediate former ED.
no, Bernadette.
Bernadette, okay, Bernadette. Yes, that is true because I worked on the Cleo. You're absolutely correct. And you are correct in that there seem to have been a significant lack of awareness of incentives as to what Investors Fiji did, especially with the local investors, because
That's right.
there was
Yeah,
a sense that Investors Fiji was only concerned about bringing in investors, FDI.
that's right. Local investment, and that they
There
were the
was,
only
yes, there
ones
was
that would
very, very
come.
little
Yes,
information
from the
or
investments. That's right. Yes.
absolutely. What do you think caused that disconnect? And how did you did mention some of it, but how did you, during your tenure, fix that disconnect so that Vincent just understood that invest is not only about FDI, but it's also the local aspect?
Right. So I can't tell you what the disconnect was before I got there. It might be you're kind of throwing me under the bus there. I don't really know. You're trying, I mean, come on, see, it
You,
was.
s- you see why you are supposed to be happy that I'm here because I will pull you out from under the bus. You see why?
But for me, when I got there, I saw that, and I heard from people before I got there. Everybody kept asking, "What is Invest SVG?" Even me, before I went to Invest SVG, I knew about Invest SVG, but I really did not know what Invest SVG do. So in of course I made myself available, and I made the staff available for interviews and to speak to the press, and to and everything we did, I made sure that it was in the press. I also spoke. Every time I spoke a lot about the fact that Invest SVG is not just for foreign investors. It is for local investors, and that was manifested even with Maya Hotel, because we worked along with Maya Hotel in respect to the investment. Um, so that was manifested there, and it was even manifested not just in investment, but the fact that we also then started to work very closely with our potential exporters. And one of the things we did very early in the game was we had a program called oh my gosh, it was something to it was potential export ready, potentially export ready, and we did it with Caribbean Export. So
Mhm.
again, the other thing I did when I got there is that I immediately started to build relationships with our regional and local organization and stakeholders immediately. Right.
Mhm.
So I remembered that when I reached out to Caribbean Export, they had said to me that they had not done anything with Invest SVG for years. So they were so happy that they immediately booked flights and came over to St. Vincent to meet us. And we built that relationship with them. So not only was Invest SVG's name being the awareness of the agency being built in St. Vincent and Grenadines, it was also being built regionally. So, and that was deliberate. That was deliberate because you can't. in that kind of organization, you can't run an organization without having like that, without having those connections and without having those relationships. So it was easy when I reached out to CDB and I asked them for funding to
Mm,
assist us with doing a strategic plan, which they did immediately. It was no issue, and when it was easy when I reached out to Compete Caribbean to ask them for assistance to do a draft bill for Invest SVG. So because I had built those relationships and Invest SVG was the name and the awareness of the agency was growing throughout
mm,
the region. And then of course I in my latter 2 years of and I don't know how many people actually know this, but I was also elected the president of CAIPA, which is the Caribbean Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, and I did a lot of work with them during those 2 years before I left Invest SVG. So
mm.
it was a matter of continuous, and relationship building is an important thing when
Okay.
you are in these positions and with your agencies, your local stakeholders, our people on the ground, our potential exporters, our persons, our potential investors. It is important that you need to build those relationships, and it is something that I've also taken into tourism authority, the relationship building with our stakeholders and the collaborating with our stakeholders and going forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Having worked as a manager myself, and working with people, and not 200, but a lot of people, and you know, um, I found it necessary, as the head of an office, to have a guiding philosophy as to what really is the fundamental basis on which I build everything, And outside of that, I also found it necessary that I must be able to measure, for me personally, what impact I have. So let's come to the question. The first is, um, as a manager now, that is your role. It has been from since Antigua, and now as Invest SVG, now tourism. As a manager, what really is the foundation, the guiding philosophy? The reason I ask is, for example, just to give you some examples, I make it clear to every member of my staff when I worked as a manager, your work is a reflection of yourself, and you don't
Absolutely.
and you don't want yourself to be reflected negatively, badly, in any way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
So you put your best foot forward. Secondly, I always say to members of my staff, if you are too arrogant to learn, this is not your place.
Hmm.
This is not your. So I had some fundamental guiding philosophy that guided me as to how I manage.
Hmm.
And I would think, well, nobody fired me, so I think I did a good job, right? And secondly, it was always for me what kind of results I can show, what achievements I can make, and fundamentally for me, philosophically speaking, even if I had to get this book done or that cupboard built or whatever, for me it was always important that the people around me, I change them. I
Yes.
I make them want to be better. I make them want to commit themselves. So I'm asking you two questions. One, what is your guiding philosophy as a manager? Because this is important at every level, and you know this. Whether it's politically, even as a church, as a preacher in a
Hmm.
church, you have to have a guiding philosophy as to where you want to take the flock. So that's the first thing. And secondly, what you would claim is your greatest achievement at Invest SVG. Those two things.
Okay. So the first one for me, I grew up in a very religious background, right? So I remember my grandfather used to always say to me, Annette, whatever you do, not because not because eyes are not on you, means that you must not do what you're supposed to do. You're given a task to do it, right? So I live by that philosophy that once I'm given a task, I need to do it and I need to make a difference and I need to make an impact. And it doesn't matter that the eyes are not on me and somebody's not standing over me with a big stick. I just need to do it and I need to get it done. So for me, in any organization that I am in, it is something that I want to impart that, listen, we're given a task to do, we're given a mandate, and we should be passionate about getting this done and be honest about getting this done. And we should put our best foot forward. Even if we fail, put our best foot forward. At least we've done that. We put our best foot forward. We have shown that we have tried and we have worked hard at this. And for me, that has always been, that guides me. And I say to people that I work with, let's just get it done. There is no, for me, there's always an answer. There's always a way. There's always somehow to get something done. And we would look for it and I would find it. It may not be the way that you expected it to be done, but I'm going to find it and I'm going to get it done. And I want the team around me to feel that sense also, that sense of, I need to get this done. Yes, there might be a little some obstacles, but here, well, we need to get over these obstacles and we need to get this done. I'm very results oriented. I love to see results. I like to put in hard work and I love to see results at the end of it. And I like to sit back and I don't have to take the praise for it. I don't need the praise for it, but I like to know that with me was a team that worked with me and we got it done. And I don't need that praise. We all get that praise together. All right. So those are some of the things that are the principles that I live on and and then the other thing is too, and I even tell my children this, whatever you are doing, it doesn't matter. Sweeping the road, the prime minister, and I heard Adam Stewart say it too, love it, because it's half the battle. It's the hard work. It makes the hard work so much easier. It makes the task so much easier. Love it. And then it's not really work. It's what you love. You're doing what you love.
Mm.
Right? So for me, no matter what I do, I give my all.
Mm.
I give my all. I've been accused over and over and over of being a workaholic. I don't stop. All right? But that's just me. It's what drives me. And for me, having the right people and even imparting that and people seeing from me what I do will motivate them.
Okay. And what you would say is your greatest achievement at Invest SVG?
My greatest achievement, I would say, boy, well, we did quite a lot at Invest SVG, yeah. It's hard to kind of pull one out. I want to say Everything Vinci Expo, the growing of in Everything Vinci Expo. And I mean, you might say, well, why not Sandals? I mean, but Sandals to me is a big international corporation that has come into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And yes, it has lifted the landscape of St. Vincent. Yes, I completely agree. But for me, is seeing the small businesses have an outlet where they can grow, where there's opportunities for them, where they can earn, where they could, so for me, there was so much more that I wanted to do with Everything Vinci Expo. And what people did not realize is that our 2019 Everything Vinci Expo, we had buyers that came in regionally from the region. We had regional persons taking part in the expo. We had started discussions. There were informal discussions about making Everything Vinci like the premier investment, the premier expo for the OECS. Right. Even in that expo, we had angel business, angel business.
Angel investor.
Yeah, angels. Yeah, investment. Oh gosh, help me there, Sion.
An angel investor.
Angel investment
Right.
conference. Anyone?
Yes.
I remember that too.
Conference. Actually, we had persons pitch.
Yes.
Wasn't there competition? I think Crystal
Yes, Crystal won.
Olivat won something.
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Oliver.
All right.
Again, COVID came along, but she did eventually get some funding,
Okay.
but it wasn't from an angel. But everything kind of shut down
Yeah.
after that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, and
Mm.
before you go on, just 30 seconds here to say this. Martin Luther King Jr. once said this. He was giving a speech at a school, see, and he said, and you have to have a blueprint for your life. And even if you sweep the streets, you must sweep it so well that when the angels pass, they couldn't
Mhm.
say that they could have done it better. Even when the
Absolutely.
angels pass. And you
Absolutely.
reminded me about that. Over to you, CN. I just want to say your own passion and your will to get it done, but to get it done so well that even
Yes.
when the angels pass, they must say we couldn't do it better. That's why I
That's
asked
it.
those questions.
Exactly.
Over to you, CN.
All right, just to let you know that we've just gone over the first hour of this
Lord.
Sunday afternoon's program. Today we are chatting with Ms Annette Mark. Annette is the newly appointed CEO of the Tourism Authority, but before that, she held the position of Executive Director of Invest SVG and other professional posts in the Caribbean. So we chatted with her and we spent the first hour just getting to know Annette a little bit, her early beginnings and some of what she did previously. A lot of focus on Invest SVG, of course, because that was the latest one. Um, but we continue our discussion and we get more into the what she's doing now for the next hour. And where would you say? Because I would preface this by saying that a significant amount of the investment work that you did was in the tourism sector. You just
Yeah.
mentioned Sandals, you talked about Holiday Inn, you talked about Maya and so forth. Where would you put St. Vincent now as a destination for both tourism investment as well as for the various niches of tourism in terms of sailing, yachting, diving, honeymooning, and so forth? Where would you put St. Vincent and the Grenadines as an overall holistic um, destination, and what do you see our potential as?
Okay. So I'm going to speak in general terms simply because
Yes, general.
we do have a press conference on Wednesday um, with the minister, and I know a number of announcements have already been made, but we will formalize them and give further details. And then sometime after the budget is finalized, we will also then go into more details as to where we're taking the authority. In respect to the landscape for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in respect to tourism, I mean, you hear it from everybody. We are virgin territory.
Yes.
Because of the fact that we only had a international airport in 2017, it has opened up so many doors for us. And we saw that at the Investment Authority. The thing about it is that we are also at a point where and maybe it was a good thing we didn't have a airport beforehand, because we might have been in the same pitfalls of some of our other neighboring islands where they went into mass tourism and in all-inclusive hotels where they thought that that was the best way to go. Um, and now they're realizing maybe not,
Mm.
right? Um, where we are, we literally can chart our course. I personally think that St. Vincent and Grenadines has one, if not the best tourism product in the Caribbean. And I simply say that because when you look at our landscape, we have 32 islands and keys. We have a mainland St. Vincent and the Grenadines where you have rivers. You have it's open for ecotourism. You understand what I mean? It's open for a different kind of tourism. It just lends itself for that, right? I mean, the black sand beaches. We have some white sand beaches on mainland. We have rivers, and right now we're trying to find out exactly how many waterfalls we have. So when we go out there, we can say to people, "Listen, come to St. Vincent and Grenadines. We have X amount of waterfalls. We have X amount of rivers. We have X amount of black sand beaches. We have X amount of white sand beaches. We have islands. We have, you know, we have so much to offer you. We have sailing waters. We have diving. We have this. We have that. That is the kind of messaging we want to take out there. So I always tell people, even outside of my life of the Tourism Authority, when people speak about St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I always tell people, you look at our neighboring islands that market, for instance, the Grenadines, right? And I go to one of these islands and I go to white sand beaches. But you're marketing to me smaller islands with white sand beaches. I have St. Vincent where I market rivers, waterfalls, black sand. But then on the other side, I market white sand beaches, beautiful coral islands with white sand. Right? So for me, our product is so unique. I think probably Hawaii is probably the only other place in the world that offers that, gives
Mm,
that sort of, or maybe I don't know, Thailand or somewhere like that. But definitely this side of the world, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is the only place that offers that product. Um, as to where we are going, I could only say to you that in looking at the year ahead, it is all about refocusing our energies, retooling the investment authority, um, re-energizing, rebranding to bring
mm,
awareness to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the Tourism Authority and the that we do there, right? There are certain areas that we're looking into. We're having a lot of interest from airlines coming to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but we do need rooms. So it is a matter that one you can't do one without the other, but the interest is there. It's a buzzword, I would say, St.
mm,
Vincent and the Grenadines. We there are a lot of articles being written about us,
mm,
and I'm trying to say this without saying too much. The Tourism Authority will have a different focus next year, and
mhm,
it will be there will be a number of things that we would look at to fill our seats, to fill our hotels,
mm,
to increase our, to extend our tourism season, to ensure that something is always happening. And one of the things, and I will speak about this, is that stakeholder engagement is very important. Stakeholder engagement in the public, the private sector, locally and regionally, internationally. Stakeholder engagement is so important moving forward, and we will be building those relationships, whether it's with the airlines, whether it's with the cruise lines, whether it's with the travel agents, whether it's with locally the promoters, the our with national parks. We will be building those relationships and working and leading. You
mm.
will see the authority leading on a lot of things.
CM,
You did just to follow up on
yes,
that,
go ahead.
Richard. One of the things I'm happy about having you on this program, and it is because you come from the investment space into the marketing space. So my question to you is, from where you were to where you are, how much do you think has have Vincentians taken advantage or seized the opportunity for for the potential that lie ahead for the growth in tourism?
Right.
Um, because you just spoke about things like space and rooms and so on and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
So they may not be able to do hotels, but Airbnb, taxis, tours, and so forth. How prepared are Vincentians from an investment standpoint to take advantage of the impact and the results of the marketing
Mhm.
and the results of the retooling and the refocusing that the authority will be engaging in come next year?
Okay, so we kind of blurring the lines here between investment and the marketing, but there is no there is no clear cut line
Mm,
between the both of them, right?
And that's why I said I'm glad it's you are
Yeah,
talking about
there's no
because you
clear cut
can
line between them.
exactly.
Well, you know what, Sian, when I was in Invest SVG, and we all knew that Sandals was coming, we all know that there's a Marriott coming, there's the Holiday Inn open, and the airlines are coming. But I've always said this, that I find that we are a risk averse people, and we are not. We need to be more proactive when it comes to investments. There are so many opportunities out there, and I'll tell you, even down to this opportunity that I keep speaking about. One of them in particular, a, a laundromat, a proper industrial laundromat. You're gonna have some big hotels here. You have Sandals, you're gonna have Marriott eventually, you're gonna have the Holiday Inn and whoever else we don't know, right? Because there are other people that are interested. But we don't have most hotels, they actually send out their laundry, not their big laundry stuff, but there are a lot of people that come, like for instance, sandals weddings. They normally do, they could do up to what, 3 weddings a day in a month, 3 weddings a day. So imagine 3 weddings a day. It could even be more than that for an entire month. People need suits dry clean. They need wedding dress dry clean. You understand where I'm going with this, right? Things like zip lining. I mean, I know people may think we don't have the critical mass at the moment, but we do have the season. We have tourists coming here looking for things to do, looking for other sites to go to, looking for adventure. So there are a lot of opportunities out there, and I think it's important that it is laid out to persons as to what the opportunities are, whether it's Invest SVG or the Tourism Authority that has to do that, but people need to see and understand. And I mean, I'm not saying that with putting on blinkers to all of the other issues that may exist as to why persons may not want to invest or cannot invest, because there are other issues. For instance, access to financing.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
there are other issues, right? But I think it's a time that we need to come together and start to look at this, and people need to be a little bit more confident in the landscape as to and to what is happening out there.
Richard.
Okay. Yes, and thank you, Sian. Before I get to what I want to, which is an really important issue, I just want to say good night to Latoya, Paul, and to Kojo, and to Patricia DeRiggs. Thank you for joining us, and please share this. This is about national development, and we have a beautiful lady with us here tonight. McGregor Lance, how are you doing? Thank you all for joining us. We're really happy that you're here, and please
My
share
cousin
it.
Tika also said good evening as well.
Oh
One of the
yeah,
girls who
yeah,
just touched up
Tika,
as
Tika,
well. Yes.
forgive me, don't kill me, my dear, don't kill me. Now, I'm glad Sina asked that question because that is where I was going, and I want you to explain this to Vincentian so that we know. Now, there is a Ministry of Tourism, right?
Mhm.
And there, I think, well, we used to have a Director of Tourism. I don't know if we still have
Yes,
one,
we do.
right?
We do.
And then we have the Tourism Authority. What is the difference between these three things? What are the dividing lines? How do they work together? Because my understanding is that the ministry might set policy overall. You understand? But I am not working in this field. The director of tourism must have something to do, or otherwise, why do we have a director? And then we have it. We have the tourism authority. People, for me personally, Richard, I need to have an understanding because then I will get a clear picture of your particular role vis-a-vis, the other two and things like that. Could you tell us something about that, please?
Okay, so very simply, there's the Ministry of Tourism where we sit. Oh,
Yes.
am I still on?
You have the full screen.
The
You
Yes.
have the full
world is
screen. You have
seeing
the
you.
full
Don't
screen.
worry.
Okay,
You
okay,
know.
right. So we where we sit with other agencies such as National Parks and Beaches, Culture, and other agencies. So the ministry is the overall body where we sit, and we report to we are our direct line minister is the Minister of Tourism. The Tourism Authority is responsible for the promoting of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I'm saying this in very simple layman terms, the promoting of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to the world and internationally to bring our to bring guests to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And there's also a regulatory arm of the authority where we set standards for the tour operators, the taxi drivers, the hotels. We conduct training, we certify, and we certify these stakeholders. So in a very simple term, that is what we are about within the Ministry of Tourism.
Okay. Now, you said something very
I
important.
feel like I'm talking to myself, guys. Why are you
No,
trying to?
no, we are talking to you.
When we want the focus to be on you alone, so we put you on the screen.
No, CN speak the truth. CN knows how ugly I am. He doesn't want to vote to see me. You
Yeah,
understand?
that too. That
So,
too. That
so
too. That too. That too.
he puts the focus on you, which is rightly done, I must say, which is rightly done. But however, you said something, and we had discussed this a little bit a while ago, but I really want to delve into this a little bit because, um, interestingly enough, your predecessor, right? Um, you are also his predecessor, if you
Yes,
understand what I mean.
yes.
It's like changing of positions. And the issue, I have a feeling that you want to talk about this at the press conference. You don't want to let too much out of the bag right now, but I have to
Mhm.
ask you it. You have indicated to us different things are going to happen and different approaches are going to take. But I am certain in my own mind that before you applied for this job, you sat down and you look and at this business and you say to yourself, there are these fundamental things. If I were to be given this job, I would do these fundamental changes that I would make as the head of this agency, and I would do this because I think this would help push the process forward, building of course on what exists, because nobody acts in a vacuum, so to speak, right? So I I know you don't want to let out too much out of the bag, but could you tell us? Could you say to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because you're not talking to me in CN, you're talking to the country, and there are quite a few people joining us as we speak. I see Mr. Philmo Sprott is on, and he's enjoying the program. Good night, sir, and share it for us, please. But my question is, in terms of key things that you are going to do going forward. Could you name us two or three of these fundamental additions or modifications or changes that you would like to see?
Okay, simply because we are in a stage of what can I say? A number of things are happening behind the scenes that I can't really share at the moment. Um,
I thought that, and I preface my question that way. Actually, I thought that. But go ahead.
because I don't want to speak out of turn, um, but I will tell you this.
1 second, we should continue.
I'll tell you this.
Yes.
Before I came to the authority, there was a there was a um, what you call a strategic plan was actually
Hmm.
prepared
Develop.
for the
Yeah.
authority.
Right.
One moment, yeah. Yeah. Um, sorry, a strategic plan was prepared for the authority, and that sort of made my job a lot easier because a lot of my thoughts were already in that document.
Okay.
So, um, what I could tell you is that where our focus is definitely in rebranding, retooling, refocusing, and re-energizing the authority. That's what I can tell you. I can break that down for you later on in another show and
Yeah.
happily do that. But that is where our focus is, and even preparing the budget for next year. That's where our focus. Those were the fundamentals that we looked at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I and Sienna have this question, and so I'm asking it on behalf of both of us. And we said that before you arrive. As you are aware, fully aware, much of the infrastructure for tourism in the Grenadines was destroyed. A grass, as we say in French, or a cause, as we say in French, of burial
Mhm.
catastrophe,
Mhm.
and without an infrastructure, of course, tourism doesn't work. So, could you tell us? Could you give us an idea as to um, if there's any role of your body in dealing with this, and what is happening at that end? Because this is a very important question. As you know, Union has been completely destroyed. Basically,
Mhm.
Calawan suffered, Myro suffered, and Beckwith suffered, and these are all principles in terms of infrastructure for our tourism. So, could you share a little bit, because we both discussed this scene, as you remember, as you know, just before Miss Mark came on the scene. So we'd like to hear from you, and St. Vincent would like to hear from you as regards that.
Sure. Okay, so I mean, went to I've been to the Grenadines 3 times since the hurricane. And you're very right. The devastation is there. However, our messaging is that we are open for business. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is open for business. That is our one of our main messages going out right now. Um, we do recognize though that yes, there are there's a lot of work to do, especially in Union and Myro, I would say. And what we have been doing within the authority is that we have had our team going down to the Grenadines. We have been meeting with stakeholders on the ground. We have taken information from them. We've done assessments on their properties, and we are working with a larger body to try to bring relief and aid and supplies to help them to build back. Right. We are aware that, well, a couple of the islands will probably be out completely for the season.
Okay.
But Union Island should there are certain guest houses that will be back up and running by the end of the year and are expecting guests. And we are also working along in Myro to help persons. Now, one of the things that we will be doing within the authority is that we would be, and it's something that the minister and I have been speaking about, is assigning persons from within the authority to be like a tourism liaison officer for each island.
Okay.
So there's that continuous contact,
Okay.
and this is the person that you will go to, and we will eventually, it will eventually be, made public as to who and what and and how it's going to work. And there's supposed to be a relief committee also that is supposed to be in place, and these tourism liaison officers will come from that. But in the meantime and in between time, we are keeping a focus on the Grenadines. We are making ourselves available, and we are making ourselves present on the ground also in the Grenadines, so that we are working along with our stakeholders. And we cannot forget our stakeholders on mainland St. Vincent also,
Yes.
because there are a number of them that were affected, and we are working along with them also. And like I said, we are part of a larger committee that we feed information into.
Okay.
If we go back a little bit, Annette, to one of the roles that you explained of the authority, which is certification, tell us a little bit about that certification process, what it entails from the standpoint of the properties, as
Mhm.
well as the certification of these to make them tourism certified.
Okay, so um, we would we have a team within the department, which is quality development, and they would go out and train like new so we they would persons would apply, and we'd go out and we train like batches of like the tour operators, the the hotels, the taxi operators, and they would go through a training process and they would be certified. Now, it's a little bit more complex when it comes to like a hotel, because then there's an inspection process, and there's also inspection of, by the way, like the vehicles, like like
Uh-huh.
taxi drivers. We do inspect their vehicles also. Um, so they would. but the inspections of a hotel requires not just the tourism authority. We do work with other departments for those. So we work with health, we work with the fire department, we work with there are a number of departments that come together to conduct the inspections on the hotels. um, and then the hotels are certified and registered with the tourism authority. Now, the whole system that is in place at the moment, we will be re-examining coming the next year, and we are looking, and we are also looking to also bring under the while we do some training for restaurants, they we don't really they're not it's not it's normally part they're normally part of the restaurants that we certify would be restaurants and hotels.
At hotels.
But yes, so we want to really develop a program of also certifying the restaurants. And not just certifying, I have my own ideas of how we can go about certifying and revamping the program for certifying the restaurants and the hotels and the taxi operators, because I do believe that we, as good as our product is, there's always room for improvement, right? And we do know, we hear it over and over about service in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and blah, blah, blah. And even though when you go to the Grenadines, the service is completely different. So we have the capacity to do it, right? We just need to formalize it, right? Um, so we'll be also looking at that process throughout during next year. So there are a number of things that we will be looking at, we will be examining, and will probably not roll out until 2026.
To follow up on that, how willing are the operators, the taxi operators, and some of the smaller property operators? How willing are they to be partners with the tourism authority in ensuring that they are registered and certified? Is it something that you find you have to be pulling teeth, or are these properties, are these stakeholders recognizing the necessity of the partnership and coming forward ready to register?
Well, it's an important partnership, but I'm going to answer that. Well, I'm going to answer that from, and I'm going to be personal here in the way that I answer that. It is an important partnership, but what I also believe that the authority has got to do is to incentivize the operators to want to be registered with the authority. And
Mm,
we have to do some work within the authority to make sure that we capture those partnerships and people.
mm,
So, you can't just say to somebody, oh, just register. There must be a reason. We must be doing things. We must be promoting. We must be working behind the scenes and
mm,
making it, turning it around so that those who are not registered want to be registered with
mm.
the authority. So that's the way I will answer that.
Okay.
Sian, I am going to drop a bombshell now, a real bombshell. And probably, I don't know, but I want St. Vincent to hear this. It has always been my dream, Miss Mark, that St. Vincent would have a national museum, which I think would be something that would add significantly to the tourism product.
Mhm.
That museum would cover things like our culture, for example, carnival, pictures from past carnivals and so on, calypso competitions, about our food and so on and so forth, our history. But I believe with this new trust in tourism, and as you say, St. Vincent is now a buzzword in tourism. And my personal view, this is just my personal view, that the country needs a national museum, which would add significantly to the tourism product of the country. And
Mhm.
based on what you were discussing, I wouldn't just want to hear your view on it, but if Cian has a comment on that, I'd like to hear what, because he doesn't know, it's a bombshell because I and him did not discuss this, and the people who are listening to us might also want to chime in on this on the chat. But my personal view, the day has come now for a proper
Mhm.
national museum of St. Vincent
Mhm.
and the Grenadines, which is fundamental to culture, but and also to tourism. What is your view, Ms. Mark?
I think that anything that will promote our product is worth doing. And I'm going to drop a bombshell on you now. Why don't you come along and work along with the investment, work with the tourism authority and help us get this museum up?
I
Before
agree.
I
I absolutely agree with that, Anna.
have to say about it,
Challenging.
Sid might
I
say it's
agree with
I
you.
heard
nonsense.
you're retired, you
Hold
know.
on, hold on. Sid might
I
say it's
heard you're retired.
nonsense and we don't need to do it. So let's hear what Sid has to say first.
No, why? I like the fact that you choose to speak for me while I'm quite capable of speaking as well. Um, but I don't see why I would even consider that being nonsense. There are elements of St. Vincent and the Grenadines that need to be that. Well, first of all,
Be captured
we
and
we have not done a fantastic job in capturing it, but there are elements that are captured and have been saved, and so it should be exposed
you know,
for not
yeah.
just visitors but also for Vincentians to see what's happening.
Absolutely.
I have no doubt that books like Pauline Bramble would add to that as well, the story of Pauline Bramble, because it does offer a historical social context of simplicity
Yeah.
where it is,
Yeah.
you know. And so yes, the time has come. We know, for example, that within the past we've seen certain discoveries within the recent past, things like the petroglyphs in Leo, and also out at Argyle, and the way that there was the making of the village out at Argyle as well, that Carrick village. These are all things that I believe tells a story of a people, um, and or island. And so
Hmm.
if we can have a lot of those things also in one place, I've also said, Richard, many, many times, one of the few countries, probably one of the only countries, where we have all of these beautiful cathedrals and people walking is probably St. Vincent. I've been to Germany by Richard, Cologne, different places. And to go into one of those cathedrals, you have to pay. You don't just walk through. It's
Hmm.
actually a tour that you pay for. And so we have these fantastic cathedrals. We have the Roman Catholic, we have the Anglican cathedral and so forth. And tourists come, they take pictures, they walk through, they look at, they walk in and they walk out. So yes, the time has come for one, for us to, I don't want to use the word commercialize, but in the same it's done, the same Anglican, the same Catholic, the same whatever is done in different countries. It can be done in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the same way other countries have put artifacts that tell stories of their people, their culture, their history in a single location. St. Vincent and the Grenadines can definitely do that because, as the mantra of the Prime Minister always goes, we ain't better than nobody, but nobody better than us. And so, yes, the time has definitely come.
But you know something also, Sia. Um, there's like an emerging trend right now in tourism where visitors go um to islands and different countries to experience the culture, and
Yes,
not just experience it, but experience it up close and personal,
yes.
right? So in my mind, I have always thought, and this is one of the things that I would love at some point to see implemented, is that why is it that when a cruise ship comes in, we can't have a program where visitors can experience the day in the life of a Vincentian,
Absolutely.
right? So if it is that you want to take, the person wants to go to church, say for instance, you will go to church with the person, you will have lunch with the family, you will go, and of course these will be people that are certified with
Brilliant.
and have gone through certain training so that they know. And for me, that kind of thing also brings home tourism to the locals, and how to appreciate tourism more, rather than just seeing it as, oh,
Yeah,
seasonal thing. People come, they go, they come, they go, and this, that, and the other. They get a better appreciation of what tourism is all about. There's
yeah,
so many facets and aspects to tourism. There's historical tourism, there's cultural tourism, there's all,
Absolutely.
there's just so many different aspects that can grow and can be developed. And in my, I look forward to seeing something like that developed in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
No, I'm going to get back to that. Put a question to you on that about the tools that you now have to work with, and whether or not you think tools like the airport, the now modernized Antsville and so on, if you think those tools would make your job easier as marketing, and you talk about things like sports tourism. But just, and you keep that question in mind, as I would say, one of the projects I've had in mind for years, my mother would tell you, my sisters would tell you, I've shared it with them. And in close to Chateaubelair, you have Dappley Falls. And years ago, of course, you had Trinity Falls, which was destroyed because of flooding and so on. But you have a lot of waterfalls in the area. And one of the projects I've
Sorry,
always
John,
said,
I have to tell you that I spoke to Paul Cyrus, and he has told me that we have over 300 waterfalls in St. Vincent.
there are
Oh,
quite a few waterfalls,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
That
One of the
that I
things,
learned something today. I didn't know that. I
Yes,
didn't know that.
we do have over
one of
300.
the projects I've always wanted to embark on in Chateaubelair is to get myself two donkey cats, donkey drawing cats,
To get what?
two
Donkey
donkey
cat. You
cats,
don't know anything about that. You have to learn.
right?
How about it,
Cats,
Kian?
cats.
Hey, I know. See, that's
No,
my family come from, you know.
now when you go to Manhattan, you see these horse carriages taking
Yeah,
people around. I want donkey cats, so two donkeys drawing a cat, and on the back of it, you have an icebox coconut, with coconut water. And that is the tour that's taken, it would pick the tourists up at the wharf, and that tour is taking you to Darkview or to Richmond or to Pittibidel. You're
wait, hold on,
going,
hold on,
drawing a
hold on
donkey
this
cart,
second.
and you
I
have,
hope you're not telling me that I'm going all the way from Kingston. You mean the wharf in Chateaubelair, right?
yes, of course, of
Oh,
course.
okay.
Remember, CEO, we are a port of
I'm
entry.
getting just make it
So
Oh my God.
you would reach forever. And I just think someone comes off the yacht or the ship in Chateaubelair in the port, and you get onto a donkey cart, and as you're going to, you can get a coconut water to refresh yourself, you can get a roast corn to eat and so on,
Mhm.
and you're being riding on that thing to go to Richmond or to go to Darkview or to go to Pittibdale, and you're being told you're walking under the aqueduct and so forth, as we call the arches in Fitzhugh. And that's the tour. And it's as simple as that, but that has always been something I would love to do. I grew up in a home where we had donkey.
Yes.
And so it is something I've always thought that, I'd love to do that as a project, but you never know. So now that we've all, you talked about your weather girl, Richard has talked about the museum, I've talked about my donkey cats. We could talk about some of the tools that you now have as the CEO of Invest SVG in making the job even easier, rather, because now you could talk about sports tourism because we have
Mhm.
a track at Diamonds, and
Yes.
we have a modern playing
I,
field at Annisvale.
yeah,
You
yep.
know,
We
so
are, yeah.
how do you see the infrastructural development overall?
Mhm.
The that Diamond Annisvale, the proposed modern center in Annisvale. How do you see all of those things working together to make your promotion of St. Vincent and Grenadines even better?
Okay, so again, without going into too much,
Yes, 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 yes.
it is a focus. Sports tourism is a focus, right? And that is, and it one of the focus, I should say. Of course, it makes it so much easier when you have an international airport and you can get to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and you could mark it and say, hey, you can fly 3 hours from Miami to St. Vincent, or you can fly directly from New York, or you can come directly from wherever, because it makes life so much easier when you have a direct flight, right?
Right.
So the international airport, definitely an absolute plus. The sports facilities, an absolute plus. I mean, I'm totally encouraged by the hosting of the ICC cricket tournament earlier this year. I mean, we can do it. Logistically, it can be done. And I've heard people say, oh, you all only have small boutique hotels in St. Vincent and da, 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 and whatever, it's not going to work. Well, it did work, and we showed the world that it did work. And apart from that, there are other, because of our international airport, because of Sandals, because of the new cricket stadium, etc., and number of hotels even expanding and new hotels. there's an area of there's a niche area that we are looking at, and I'm not going to say very much more about this, but mice. That is meetings, incentive conferences, and exhibitions. Because we were very encouraged by the CLAC conference,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
logistics, the planning that went into it, by the Rotary conference that took place here.
Yeah.
This year also, where we had 200 and something people staying at
Yeah.
nobody stayed at Sandals, by the way. They all stayed at other hotels, but logistically it worked.
And
But it,
we also had the small states conference as well, the prep conference
that's right.
that was done in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well,
That's
last August, I believe.
yes, and
Over 90 something people were there.
that's right. And right now, I know that there's another meeting that's taking place. And you know the guys from the and I don't the masonry. There's a conference taking place, an installation that just took place here in
Okay.
St. Vincent. Again, you know it can happen, right? So we are very encouraged, and this is an area, a niche area of tourism that does not have to be within a tourist season or traditional tourist season. It can be outside. It can
Mhm.
happen outside of that, outside of that season. So these are lessons that we are learning and that we are seeing, and experiences that have happened that we are taking forward into the next couple of years.
Here's my question, I tap onto that because I want to spend a little bit of time on health. We have the new modern hospital that's coming in Annesville, but even outside of that, we have added a number of services at the modern medical in Georgetown,
Mhm.
including very cheap dialysis. Is that something that St. Vincent Grenadines is promoting as a particular niche as well that carry come? Because I remember the government did go as far as doing a pricing tier system where there's
Yes.
a Vincentian pricing, a CARICOM pricing, and so forth. Is that something that the government, the tourism authority, is looking seriously at promoting as a niche for tourism as well, health tourism?
It is an area that can be promoted, yes, and that we have also looked at. But you know, again, like I said, refocusing and trying to stay focused on certain things and not kind of spread ourselves too thin
Too thin.
immediately,
Okay.
especially in light of the fact that we do need more rooms, definitely, right?
Okay.
But health tourism is a big area. It does bring traffic to an island, and an island like St. Vincent and Grenadines, whether and you have to acknowledge WPP. Believe it or not, that is a
Yes.
Mhm.
form of health tourism, and
Exactly.
that is
It is.
working right
It is.
now in St.
It
Vincent
is.
and Grenadines that we can also grow from, right? So and we can learn from. So it is an area, yes, that is there for development, and it's not, it has not gone unnoticed
Mm.
at the authority. It is definitely something on the radar.
Okay. Okay.
I wanted to ask you about um, this particular aspect because I've enjoyed it myself in places like France, Luxembourg, Belgium, and so on, Switzerland. Um, how do we tie in what we call the cottage industry and visits to those cottage industry? Is that an idea? So, for example, we have Erica's, we have the rum factory, we have the people doing the what do you call it, madongo and so on, and we
Mhm.
do have barley and the blackfish thing and so on and so forth. And I can tell you, well, I wouldn't tell you what I did in some of those places that I went, but I know certain people went up to Scotland and drank so much whiskey from this cottage industry business. They visited serious distilleries, and things like that, right? And I always feel that there are three things to this, which can be important to tourism. One, as you were saying earlier, it tells a story about our life. You
Mhm.
know, that's the
Mhm.
first thing. Secondly, it tells a story about our history. you know,
Absolutely.
and that sort of thing. But thirdly, it allows these people to taste St. Vincent, our rum,
Absolutely.
blackfish, and so on. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that as regards as we go forward? Because we don't use it right now, as far as I know. So I was wondering because it's big business in places like Luxembourg, the
Yes,
south of
yes,
France,
yes.
and so
Yeah,
on. I have done this, so I know Belgium,
yeah.
Switzerland. I know this, and so Bruges, for example. I've been to all of these places and visited these cottage industry, and I find it extremely interesting because of the things I've said, and it gives you a taste, of the society. And so I just like to hear your views on that.
Okay. What I can tell you is that gastronomy tourism is definitely on our radar, right?
Okay.
Um, it is like you said, in experiencing the culture,
Yes.
experiencing the country, experiencing the taste. You must experience the food. You must experience, like you said, the rum, the whatever it is that we are known for here. For me, I would love to see, and right there by that Bukomet River where they catch tree, sandals doing something with their guests, getting them involved in the catching of tree, the
Mm-hmm.
preparation
Mm-hmm.
of tree, the eat. You understand where
Mm-hmm.
I'm going
Mm-hmm.
with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 absolutely.
You know, but gastronomy tourism is a big thing, and it is on our radar, and it is part of experiencing our culture, and we do recognize that. And moving forward in part of the rebranding and the telling of our story, our gastronomy tourism has got to play a part. For me, I think that when we start to look at telling our story, it has to be about the feel, it has to be about the taste, it has to be about the experience, it has to be, it has to be about everything, the earth, everything that you can touch, you can taste, you can smell, you can see. That is what our story must be told, our story must be told moving forward to get people to understand and experience St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Mm.
Just to say this, Ian, Alston Beckett Cyrus in 1975 won the Calypso Monarch. The only time he won it. He won it with two songs, one called Carnival History and the other called California Girl. In Carnival History, he says this. Alston a GI in Hawaii, I had to teach them some carnival history. From the time they heard I was a West Indian, every day they would ask about carnival. I tell them it's a festival in carnival's class. I tell them about the big three, Calypso, Steel Band, and Mardi Gras. I quote that to say this, that um, regardless of how much people tell you things like Carnival in St. Vincent or Christmas in St. Vincent or Nine Morning in St. Vincent, unless you're there to feel it,
Yes, you
a
won't
different
understand.
thing. Unless you're there to taste it, is a different thing. It's the same thing with chichi and bam bam and blackfish.
Yes,
So,
yes,
so this
yes,
is why I was mentioning that.
yes,
Back over to you, please. But that's the reason, it
yes.
is that. I mean, I went down to
What is
Brand
unique to
in
us?
South France, and I
Yeah,
I drank so much brandy there. That was years ago. I don't do that anymore now. You
yeah.
know. And in Cuba, I went to a tobacco farm and smoked cigars there.
Mm-hmm,
And in Chile, when I went to diplomatic school. I think Cian went to diplomatic school there as well. When I
mm-hmm,
went to diplomatic school, we were taken to the wineries, and
mm-hmm,
we tasted the wines and so on in Chile.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
all of that sort of stuff. And in Spain, where I went as well, where they make the ham, this ham that you slice
Yes,
very thin. And I
yes.
went to the farm, and it was an unforgettable experience. So this is why I mentioned that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and we have some um unique dishes and beverages to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the other day I was looking at something on TikTok, and I'm so sorry I did not save that video. I think I may have shared it with someone, but I can't find it. Our strong rum. So there was this young man.
I
There was
saw that one. He was
Yeah,
tasting.
where he mixed all the rums, and
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and he,
about
and he
St.
finally
Vincent
turned
strong
pink.
rum.
And he finally turned pink.
He kept thinking, and to me, even though as comical as it was, for me,
Yeah,
he kept mentioning St. Vincent strong
Vincent.
rum.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
and I mean, you could see him poor thing the next day.
Yeah,
You know, he was paying for it the next day. But
Mm.
to me, as simple as that is such good marketing for our strong room.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
I mean, and I really need to find that. I really want to find that TikTok video. So anybody out
Okay.
there who has it, please send it to me. I
Quickly,
think,
Annette, we're
yeah,
running out of time. I just want to ask one more question because we have, you see how quickly the tour was flying? Um, and it ties into a lot of what we've discussed, but I wanted to ask it pointedly. We do the three big festivals: Christmas, Carnival, and Easter. Any plans to expand beyond? And you talked about gastronomy tourism a while ago. We have the Mudongo Festival.
mhm,
Under Gerald's tenure as MP of North, he started the Breadfruit Festival. These are things that can be expanded. Maybe we can look at, although I must say that there are some interests that are so much against the cultural indigenous practices of St. Vincent Grenadines regarding whaling, which the international community has nothing against, absolutely nothing against, because
yes,
the eels, the seals in Canada and so on get the exemption. People are able to hunt them and so forth because of it's recognized as an indigenous practice. But maybe that there can be a whaling festival joining something with Barry and Beckwith. Any plans? I mean, without saying too much, because that seems to be the mantra this evening of expanding the
yeah.
festivals.
We yes, definitely. Like I told you early on, it's working with our stakeholders on the ground, public and private. We do recognize we have a number of festivals that we at the Tourism Authority can work with the stakeholders to promote. Again, it's all about bringing visitors to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we do have our festivals, and we cannot ignore them. We have to work along with the stakeholders to promote these festivals and even make them bigger and better and, marketable.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely.
right. Cian, as we're wrapping up, I just want to read something here and make a comment. It's from an Anne Lee, and this is what she writes. Tourism has had a detrimental impact on Caribbean islands, harming our economies and eroding our cultural identity while fueling a growing desire for foreign goods. We would benefit more from embracing ourselves on as tourists and promoting inter-island travel. And she goes on. However, what I want to say is this, Cian, probably one of these days we could bring back the beautiful Miss Mark, and we can then discuss the pros and cons, the pitfalls that tourism can also bring to us if we're not careful. I think
Absolutely.
it's an, I think it's an important discussion, Miss Mark. What do you think
Absolutely.
yourself?
Absolutely, I agree with you. And this is why I've said to you that St. Vincent is at a very important crossroad right now. And
Okay.
to an extent, the writer is right, but we are at a crossroad that we don't want to get into those pitfalls, right?
Yes.
We don't want to end up like Antigua that moved away completely, or any other island from agriculture. We want to make sure that we still are able to feed our people.
Yes.
There's so many things that as we move and as our product develop, that we also need to keep in mind to not fall into the same pitfalls of
Right.
our neighboring islands.
Well, I'll say this as we wrap up, darling. I mean, I heard it. I see I saw the message. I do not necessarily agree with the way it was. I do not agree with the premise of the message
Mhm.
because I think if you look at our food bill for the last 20 years, that is astronomical for chicken and all those type of things. It's not because of tourism. It's
It's
because
not.
Vincentians
You're right.
want to
Yeah.
buy KFC
Yeah.
and so forth. So while I do agree that there are disadvantages of an overemphasis in
Yeah.
tourism, the premise that tourism drives our desire for foreign goods, that I do not necessarily
Yeah.
totally agree
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Our children want conflicts and not cornmeal, not because of tourism.
Mm.
You're
I drank pap. They don't drink pap. It's not because of tourism,
but
right?
not only that, um, in my opinion, it's a very narrow way to look at the effects of
Mm.
tourism because there's a big picture behind this,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Tourism in all of the islands is one of the biggest earners for the
Of course,
government.
foreign exchange,
So,
absolutely.
what do we really do? And that can take you into a whole different conversation down the road,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and
what
that
do
is
we
why
do
I
as
said,
small islands to
yeah.
maintain us, if not tourism,
And
right?
that is why I said that CN would probably invite you back and we could discuss that particular
Yeah.
question because it's a whole discussion. 30 seconds. Ms. Mark, make sure you get this book and buy a few copies
So
from
you
your budget. Wait, I'm not finished. Buy a few copies from your budget so that when you go abroad, you say, well, this is the gift from St. Vincent and you'll enjoy. And it will help me. You understand?
you know
So
Oh,
don't just buy a copy for yourself. Use your budget because you should have a budget for that where you often give,
why you see
right?
when you come to St. Vincent, you need to come and let's talk, right?
Okay, I will come.
Yes. That's all I can
Okay,
tell
good.
you. Let's talk.
All
well,
right.
well,
Okay.
boy, you walk and walk and walk till you get invitation. All right, boy. All right, that's nice. Annette, let me thank you so much for being our guest this evening. I really appreciate you spending the last 2 hours with us. And I
Pleasure.
look forward to sometime in the future you being our guest again. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the insights. And I look forward to your press conference on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right.
Take care.
Okay. Bye. See you both.
Bye
All
bye.
right. Take
One, it was
care.
a pleasure. This
And
afternoon was definitely a pleasure.
and keep the smile. Don't, regardless of what CN says, there's no tourism without smile.
I will always.
Take
All
care.
right, my
Bye.
dear. It was
Take care.
wonderful having you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And that was Annette. It's Richard. We went over 2 hours, so you know what I mean. But that's fine. But it was really a great interview, a great
It
discussion
was a
with Annette, and
tremendous,
I
it
do
was a
hope
tremendous thing.
yeah, I do hope all listeners and our viewers appreciate the
Right.
information that we
It was
brought.
a tremendous exercise. Tremendous.
Let me thank
Somebody
all of
actually
those.
wrote something to the effect that you should be given something for doing this program. Somebody actually wrote that on earlier. Somebody said this man should be given something for this thing. And
Mm.
that tells me, understand. Somebody wrote that. Somebody actually wrote that
Well,
somewhere.
and I appreciate that. Whether or not I do, I'm doing this for the love of it, and because I think it's we all have a role to play, and everybody would make their own contribution. This is mine. I'm not a sportsman. I can't go in Olympics like Shafika. I can't swim in the Olympics. I can't play cricket like Nixon and Dayton and umpire and so forth. But in terms of spreading awareness and lifting the consciousness of our people, I can play my part, and that's where I see my contribution. So I thank you and whoever wrote that for the sentiments, but I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and with the support of all those of us, all those of you who whether it's Thursday night or Sunday, who log on to be a part of this experience. I really appreciate it. So until next Sunday, when we are back with Thank You Tika, and I know you got my back 100%. Next Sunday, when we're back with another edition of Sunday Settie. Well, by the way, Richard, I said Sunday Settie, and Ev put Sunday Sofa. So I'm like, where was he all the time we wanted the name? I just said, no, he comes to sofa. But anyway, uh, until next Sunday, when we're back with you with another exciting program. This is Sion Marshall and my good friend
Richard Byron Cox.
saying, have yourself a fantastic Sunday evening. Take
All
care.
right. Take care.